5 years had passed since the war ended. On the Vixuri homeworld, spring brought bright blue flowers that covered the hills surrounding the capital city. Commander Neeks, now serving as a liaison between his people and humanity, walked with Dr. Liza Winters through a newly built park. "Our world has changed so much," Neeks said, looking at young Vixuri playing with human children near a fountain. "Many of us thought your supervision would be harsh." Liza smiled. "Humans learned long ago that oppression breeds rebellion. We wanted peace, not another war in 100 years." After the tribunal, humanity had surprised the galaxy. Instead of military occupation, they sent teachers, engineers, doctors, and cultural experts to help rebuild Vixuri society. Military supervisors maintained order, but with a light touch. "The museum opens tomorrow," Neeks said. "Will you speak at the ceremony?" The museum had been Liza's idea, a place to preserve the story of the ancient warning and what happened when it was ignored. It stood near the center of the capital, its walls covered with both Vixuri and human artwork. "I would be honored," she replied. On Earth, Admiral Susan Powell stood in the Oval Office with the President and Jack Rivera. A holographic display showed statistics from across former Vixuri space. "Trade is up 20% this year," Powell reported. "Criminal activity is down. And public opinion surveys show 70% of Vixuri now view humans as partners rather than overlords." "And the military situation?" the President asked. "Our supervisory forces report no issues. The small defensive fleet we allowed them to maintain focuses on piracy and search and rescue." Rivera nodded with satisfaction. "The Galactic Alliance has taken notice. 3 other species have approached us about military training partnerships." The President looked thoughtful. "And they're not afraid of us." "Oh, they're still afraid," Rivera said with a small smile. "But they'd rather be our friends than our enemies." The Vixuri served as an effective demonstration. On New Montana, the memorial to the lost children had become a place of pilgrimage. A circular garden surrounded a beautiful statue showing the human and Vixuri child holding hands, looking toward the stars. Today, a group of Vixuri visitors laid flowers at the base of the statue. Among them was a young Vixuri female whose scales shimmered with youth. "My father died in the war," she told the human guide. "He was a ship engineer. For years, I hated humans for killing him." "What changed?" the guide asked gently. "Human doctors saved my mother when she was sick. Human teachers helped me learn. I realized that anger only brings more pain." Elsewhere in the galaxy, on a distant planet just beginning to explore nearby stars, a group of explorers found ruins similar to those on Nexus 7. Their translator worked on the ancient script carved into stone walls. "It speaks of other civilizations," one explorer said excitedly, "including one called humans." The lead scientist moved closer. "What does it say about them?" The translator read slowly. "The humans of Sol 3 are not to be provoked. They forgive, but they never forget." "There's more," the translator continued. "It appears to be a later edition in slightly different script." The new text told of a species called the Vixuri, who ignored the warning and paid a heavy price. But it also spoke of how humans showed mercy when victory was absolute, how they helped rebuild what war had destroyed. In orbit above Vixur Prime, Admiral Kate Dawson stood on the bridge of the Relentless, preparing to depart. After 5 years overseeing the transition, she was returning to Earth. A new, smaller supervisory force would take over. "Final report, Admiral," her aide asked. Dawson looked at the beautiful blue-green planet below. "Mission accomplished. The lesson has been learned." As the ship moved away, Dawson thought about the ancient warning that had started everything. The predecessors had been right to fear humanity's capacity for violence when provoked, but they had missed something important about humans. Sometimes, the most impressive strength isn't the ability to destroy. It's the wisdom to rebuild. 1 month after the surrender of Vixur Prime, a military tribunal convened in a massive hall on the neutral planet Centaurus 4. Representatives from across the Galactic Alliance came to witness the proceedings. Supreme Commander Zex and 6 other Vixeri leaders stood before the tribunal. They wore simple gray clothing instead of their usual military armor. Behind them sat Commander Neeks, who had a different status as a cooperative witness. The human delegation included Admiral Susan Powell, Jack Rivera, and Dr. Lisa Winters. Admiral Dawson remained with the fleet, maintaining security across former Vixeri space. Powell addressed the tribunal first. The charges are as follows: unprovoked attacks on human outposts and colonies, resulting in the deaths of 42 scientists on Proxima Centauri IV and 312 civilians on New Montana, including 157 children. Images of the destroyed school appeared on large screens. Many in the audience turned away, unable to look. The Galactic Alliance judge, a tall, blue-skinned Arcturian, turned to the Vixeri leaders. "How do you plead?" Zex stepped forward. "We acted in what we believed were the best interests of the Vixeri people. We did not intend to kill children." A murmur rippled through the audience. Powell's face remained hard as stone. "Intent is irrelevant," she said. "You ordered attacks on civilian targets." For 3 days, evidence was presented. Neeks testified about the discovery of the ancient warning and how it had been dismissed. Military logs showed the deliberate planning of both attacks. Jack Rivera then surprised everyone by speaking in defense of mercy. "Humanity remembers its own bloody history," he said. "We fought wars among ourselves far worse than this conflict. We learned that true justice includes the chance for redemption." Protests erupted from the human section, especially from the families of New Montana victims. "They killed our children," shouted one woman. "They deserve no mercy." The judge called for order. "What does Earth propose as punishment?" Powell stood. "The Vixeri military will be disbanded. Their warships will be destroyed. They will pay reparations to the families of those killed. And they will remain under human supervision for 100 years. Zex hissed in shock. "You would make us defenseless slaves." "Not slaves," Powell corrected. "You will govern yourselves in all matters except military. Your culture, your way of life, will continue. But you will not have the means to threaten others." Before the final decision, Lisa Winters asked to speak. The judge granted permission. "I have studied both the ancient warnings and Vixeri history," she said. "The predecessors feared humanity's capacity for violence when provoked. This fear was justified." She paused, looking at the Vixeri leaders. "But there was something the predecessors didn't understand about humans. We are equally capable of forgiveness. The Vixeri made a terrible mistake, but exterminating them would be an even greater one." The tribunal deliberated for 2 days. Finally, the judgment came. The Vixeri leaders directly responsible for ordering the attacks would serve life imprisonment. The Vixeri people would disarm, as Powell had suggested, with the 100-year supervision period. Most importantly, Vixeri culture would be protected, and their worlds would remain their own. As the tribunal ended, Neeks approached Liza. "Why did you speak for us?" he asked. "After what we did." "Because that's the other half of being human," she replied. "We can be terrible enemies, but we can also be good friends. Your people will learn this over time." On New Montana, construction began on a memorial for the children lost in the attack. Surprisingly, Vixeri artisans offered to help build it. At first, the human colonists refused, but slowly a few began to accept the gesture. Admiral Powell watched these developments from Earth. "Do you think the peace will last?" she asked Rivera. "It will," he said confidently. "The Vixeri have learned their lesson." "And the rest of the galaxy?" Rivera smiled slightly. "I think the ancient warning makes more sense to everyone now." On a small moon orbiting a gas giant in the Cigneri system, Dr. Lisa Winters made a discovery that changed her understanding of everything. Her team had been examining another set of predecessor ruins when they found a sealed chamber deep underground. Inside were more complete records than any previously discovered. Liza worked day and night to translate them, her eyes burning from lack of sleep. "This can't be right," she whispered as the pieces came together. According to these ancient texts, humans had not simply been observed by the predecessors. They had fought them to a standstill. The records told of a war millions of years ago, when the predecessors found early humans on Earth. They had been primitive by galactic standards, but showed unusual potential. The predecessors had tried to enslave humanity, seeing them as useful tools. It had been a terrible mistake. Those ancient humans had fought back with shocking ferocity and adaptability. Despite their technological disadvantage, they had caused so much damage that the predecessors eventually quarantined Earth and the entire Sol system. The quarantine wasn't to protect humans. It was to protect everyone else. Liza immediately sent her findings to Earth Command and to Jack Rivera at the Alliance. Meanwhile, the human fleet had reached Vixer Prime. The Vixeri Home Defense Fleet formed a protective barrier around their homeworld. 300 ships arrayed in fighting formation. Admiral Dawson studied the tactical display on the Relentless. "They've committed everything they have left to this defense." She turned to Commander Neeks, who had been brought to observe. "Your leaders still don't understand. This isn't about conquest." "Then what is it about?" Neeks asked. "Education," Dawson replied simply. She opened a channel to the Vixeri fleet. "This is Fleet Admiral Kate Dawson of the Earth Defense Force. You are outmatched and surrounded. Surrender now, and no more lives need be lost." Supreme Commander Zex himself responded, his image appearing on the main screen. "Humans, you have proven your strength, but we will not surrender our homeworld. We fight to the end." Dawson nodded as if she had expected this answer. "Very well." The battle began. Human ships moved with precision that seemed impossible for vessels so large. They targeted engines and weapon systems, disabling rather than destroying when possible. Still, many Vixeri ships fought to their destruction, their crews choosing death over defeat. The space around Vixer Prime lit up with explosions and weapons fire. On the planet below, civilians watched the battle with terror. The Vixeri had always been the conquerors, never the conquered. As the battle raged, Jack Rivera addressed the Galactic Alliance emergency session, with Liza's findings displayed behind him. "The Vixeri ignored an ancient warning," he said, "but there is something all species should understand. Humanity's quarantine was not a coincidence. For millions of years, the predecessors kept the galaxy away from us." He showed images from the ruins, not to protect us, but because they feared what we might do if provoked. Today, the Vixeri are learning why. Back at Vixer Prime, the battle was ending. 2/3 of the Vixeri fleet had been destroyed. The rest were disabled or had surrendered. Human ships moved into orbit around the Vixeri homeworld. Admiral Dawson opened a channel to the planetary leadership. "Your fleet is defeated. Your military installations are targeted. Will you surrender, or shall we continue?" In the Vixeri High Command bunker, Supreme Commander Zex looked at the faces of his advisors. None would meet his eyes. "We surrender," he said finally. "What are your terms?" "Unconditional surrender," Dawson replied. "Your remaining military forces will stand down. Your leaders will face justice for the attacks on Proxima Centauri and New Montana." "And our people?" Zex asked. "Will be treated fairly," Dawson said. "Humanity remembers its own history too well to repeat the mistakes of conquerors." As human ships began landing on Vixer Prime, Commander Neeks turned to Liza, who had returned to the flagship. "The ancient warning was right," he said quietly. "Why didn't we listen?" Liza had no answer for him. Some lessons could only be learned the hard way. News of the defeat at Rigel 9 reached Vixer Prime, sending the High Command into panic. Supreme Commander Zex paced the war room, his claws clicking nervously on the stone floor. "How is this possible?" he demanded. 15 ships lost to just 5 human vessels. His advisors had no answers. The data from the battle showed weapons and technology far beyond what humans had ever displayed before. "Gather our fleets," Zex ordered. "All of them. We will crush these humans with our full might. Across Vixuri space, ships formed into massive battle groups. The Vixuri controlled one of the largest military forces in the galaxy, with over 800 warships. Surely this would be enough. On the human flagship Relentless, Admiral Dawson reviewed the battle plans with her staff. Commander Neeks, now a prisoner, watched from a corner under guard. Phase 2 begins tomorrow, Dawson said. Major Eric Donahue will lead the ground assault on the Vixuri military base on Taurus 3. Admiral Lai will take the 3rd Fleet to their shipyards at Vega 6. I will lead the main force toward Vixur Prime. Neeks couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans weren't just defending their territory. They were launching a full invasion of Vixuri space. You'll never succeed, Neeks said. Our fleets will stop you. Admiral Dawson looked at him with cold eyes. Your fleets are already being engaged, Commander. This war will be over within 2 weeks. On Taurus 3, the Vixuri defenders were shocked when human dropships breached the atmosphere. They had expected space battles, not a ground invasion. What emerged from the ships terrified them. Massive armored suits, each piloted by a single human, stomped across the landscape. Regular infantry and powered armor moved between them, using weapons that could penetrate Vixuri battle armor with ease. Major Eric Donahue led from the front, his command suit standing twice as tall as the others. His voice came through clearly on all frequencies. Vixuri forces, lay down your weapons. Civilians will not be harmed. Those who surrender will be treated fairly. Some Vixuri did surrender. Others fought desperately. Neither choice made much difference to the outcome. By nightfall, the base was under human control. In space, similar scenes played out across a dozen star systems. Vixuri ships found themselves outmatched by human vessels that seemed to predict their every move. Weapons that had served the Vixuri well in conflicts with other species barely dented human shields. At the Alliance headquarters on neutral territory, representatives from 20 alien species gathered in emergency session. The Galactic Alliance had never seen such a rapid military campaign. We must intervene, said the Taurian ambassador. The humans will destroy the Vixuri completely. Intervene at your own risk, replied Jack Rivera, the human representative. Earth has no quarrel with any species except those who attacked our children. The room fell silent. None wanted to stand against humanity's fury. On Vixur Prime, Supreme Commander Zex received the latest battle reports with growing horror. 7 major fleets defeated. 12 planets under human occupation. The shipyards at Vega 6 destroyed. How is this happening? He whispered. His chief scientist offered the only explanation they had. The ancient warning. Supreme Commander, it was true. Humans are not what they appeared to be. Zex slammed his claw on the table. Prepare the home defense fleet. We make our stand here, at our homeworld. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Winters and a team of human scholars worked frantically on occupied Vixuri worlds, protecting museums, libraries, and historical sites. They cataloged artifacts and secured cultural treasures. Why are we doing this? Asked a young assistant. These are the people who attacked us. Lisa looked up from the ancient Vixuri text she was carefully wrapping. Because this is what separates us from them. We fight when necessary, but we don't destroy what cannot be replaced. As human forces closed in on Vixur Prime, Admiral Dawson sent a final message to Earth. Primary objectives achieved. Final phase commencing. The lesson is almost delivered. The ancient warning was proving true in ways the Vixuri had never imagined. 3 days after the attack on New Montana, Commander Neeks stood on the bridge of his flagship, confused by the silence from human space. No diplomatic protests, no alliance meetings, nothing. Perhaps they have accepted their weakness, he told his officers. Our next target will be the mining facility on Rigel 9. The communications officer interrupted. Commander, we're picking up unusual activity. Multiple ships are leaving Earth's solar system, many more than normal. Neeks frowned. Show me. The screen displayed dozens of ships emerging from Earth, Mars, and Jupiter's moons. Not small civilian vessels, but massive ships with sleek, predatory designs. Where did those come from? Neeks demanded. Human military capacity is limited to defense vessels. Then more alerts sounded. Similar ships were appearing from seemingly empty regions of space, asteroid fields, and gas giant moons throughout human territory. In Earth orbit, Fleet Admiral Kate Dawson stood on the bridge of the EDF Relentless, a dreadnought that had been hidden inside an asteroid for 50 years. Around her, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. "Status report," she ordered. "All 7 battle groups are formed and awaiting final coordinates. Admiral, the Spear of Dawn is in position near Rigel 9. Dawson nodded. "Begin Operation Grim Reminder." First target, Vixari forces at Rigel 9. Across human space, people gathered around screens showing a rare address from the Supreme Military Commander of Earth. For centuries, humanity has maintained peace. After the Unification Wars, we chose to present ourselves to the galaxy as a diplomatic species. We built research outposts, not fortresses. We sent scientists, not soldiers. Images appeared of the destroyed outpost and the school on New Montana. That era has ended. The Vixari have twice attacked us, killing our people, including our children. They have mistaken our restraint for weakness. Today, they will learn the truth. Near Rigel 9, Commander Neeks's squadron of 15 warships approached the human mining facility. Suddenly, his sensors officer shouted in alarm. "Commander, 5 human vessels have appeared behind us." Neeks laughed. "Only 5. We have 15. But as the human ships closed in, Neeks realized his mistake. These were not the small patrol craft he was familiar with. These were massive warships, each larger than his flagship. Evasive maneuvers. Prepare for. The human ships fired, not with energy weapons, but with kinetic projectiles accelerated to near light speed. 3 Vixari ships simply disappeared, transformed into expanding clouds of debris. "Return fire," Neeks ordered. The Vixari weapons seemed to have little effect on the human ships, which had shields far more powerful than any the Vixari had encountered. Within minutes, 12 of Neeks's 15 ships were destroyed. His own flagship was crippled, drifting helplessly. A communication came through. A human woman with silver hair and cold eyes appeared on screen. "Commander Neeks, I am Fleet Admiral Kate Dawson of the Earth Defense Force. Your ship is being boarded. You will surrender or be destroyed." Before Neeks could respond, armored humans cut through the hull of his ship. They moved with frightening speed and precision, subduing his crew with non-lethal weapons. A tall human in black armor approached Neeks. "Commander, you are now a prisoner of war. You will be treated according to Alliance conventions." Neeks was taken to the human flagship, where he was placed in a cell. Through a small window, he watched as more human ships arrived, forming a fleet larger than any he had imagined possible. "How?" he asked the guard. "Where were these ships hiding?" The guard looked at him. "We never disarmed after the Unification Wars. We just made everyone think we did." Across human space, shipyards hidden inside moons and asteroids activated. Weapons platforms disguised as research stations revealed their true purpose. Soldiers who had posed as civilians for generations donned their uniforms. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Winters received new orders. Preserve Vixari cultural artifacts. Humanity remembers the past. We do not repeat it. The ancient warning was coming true. News of the Proxima Centauri disaster spread quickly across human space. On Earth, the president addressed the shocked population from the Oval Office. "My fellow citizens, today we lost 42 brave scientists to an unprovoked attack. We have opened diplomatic channels with the Vixari Imperium to seek an explanation and justice for this act." What the president didn't mention was what was happening behind the scenes. Deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral Susan Powell entered a facility that hadn't been used in generations. Authorization code Powell Alpha 79, she said to the security scanner. The massive doors slid open, revealing a command center filled with dust-covered consoles. Technicians were already bringing systems online. Screens lit up around the circular room. Status report, Powell ordered. A young officer saluted. Operation Grim Reminder is proceeding, Admiral. All dormant shipyards are reactivating. Reserve personnel are being contacted. First response fleets will be ready within 48 hours. Powell nodded. And the Special Projects Division. The Spear of Dawn is ready for deployment, Mom. Meanwhile, Dr. Lisa Winters and diplomat Jack Rivera sat across from the Vixari ambassador in Geneva. The alien's scaled skin glistened under the office lights. The destruction of your outpost was a regrettable accident, the ambassador clicked. Commander Neeks intended only to disable communications as a warning to respect our territorial claims. Rivera's face remained neutral, but his voice was cold. 42 lives were lost, Ambassador. We expect full reparations and the withdrawal of all Vixari ships from human space. The ambassador's eyes narrowed. The Vixari Imperium does not bow to demands. We will offer compensation for the lost lives, as is customary, but our expansion will continue. Then we have nothing more to discuss, Rivera said, standing. We will respond accordingly. As they left the meeting, Lisa grabbed Rivera's arm. They don't understand what they've done. No, Rivera agreed. They don't. In Vixari space, Commander Neeks received a message from High Command. His accidental attack on the human outpost was being reframed as a strategic move. He was being promoted for his boldness. The humans will protest through diplomatic channels, Supreme Commander Zex told him. Meanwhile, we will strengthen our position in Sector 87. Your next target is the human colony world they call New Montana. Neeks felt uneasy. Supreme Commander, perhaps we should consider the ancient warning more carefully. Nonsense. Humans have shown only weakness. They talk while we act. That is why we will rule this sector, and they will retreat. On New Montana, children played in the schoolyard of Hope Elementary. The colony was only 20 years old, but already thriving with 10,000 settlers. Most were farmers and miners who had come for a fresh start. Principal Helen Barnes watched the children with a smile. The colony had been nervous since news of the Proxima Centauri attack, but life had to continue. Her assistant rushed outside. Ms. Barnes, the defense system detected multiple ships entering orbit. Before Helen could respond, the sky lit up with streaks of green light. The colony's small defense shield activated automatically, but it wasn't designed for a full military assault. The first hits struck the colony's power plant and communication center. The next hit something much worse, the school's east wing. In orbit, Commander Neeks watched the attack with satisfaction. A proper display of Vixari power. They will learn to fear us now. His tactical officer turned from his console, mandibles clicking nervously. Commander, we've detected a large energy signature from the human settlement. It appears to be a distress beacon. Let them call for help, Neeks said confidently. By the time any human ships arrive, we will be long gone. On Earth, the emergency signal from New Montana reached military command within minutes. Admiral Powell stared at the casualty report in cold fury. How many? She asked. Early estimates show over 200 dead, Admiral, including 157 children at a school. The room fell silent. Powell closed her eyes briefly. Send the order, she said quietly. Full military activation. All reserves called up. And get me the president. The diplomatic phase is over. Within 1 hour, all communication with the Vixari ended. Human ships throughout the galaxy changed course. Military facilities hidden for centuries began to hum with activity. The humans were coming. 6 months after the discovery on Nexus 7, the Vixari High Command gathered in their grand meeting hall on Vixar Prime. The room buzzed with the clicking sounds of excited conversation. Commander Neeks stood at attention, waiting to present his findings. Supreme Commander Zex raised a claw for silence. Commander Neeks, what news of the expansion into Sector 87? Neeks stepped forward, his scales gleaming under the bright lights. Supreme Commander, the sector is rich with resources and has few inhabited worlds. However, it borders human territory. Humans, hissed one of the council members. They claim too much space for such a young species. What of the warning from the ruins? Asked another. Zex waved a dismissive claw. Our scientists have studied the translations. The predecessors were overly cautious. Humans are just one of many species in the Alliance now, and not particularly powerful. They control only 12 star systems, Neeks added. Our empire spans 43. The decision was made. The Vixuri would expand into Sector 87, regardless of human claims to the region. 3 weeks later, Captain Alan Murphy of the Earth Defense Force vessel Vigilant stood on his bridge, watching the Vixuri ships on the main screen. They were the third group to cross into human space this month. Captain, they're ignoring our hails again, reported Communications Officer Paul Grant. Murphy sighed. Keep trying. And send another message to command. The Vixuri ships had been testing human borders for weeks. They would enter human space, ignore communication attempts, then leave before any confrontation. It was a classic intimidation tactic. Sir, Admiral Powell is responding to our message, said Grant. The screen changed to show Admiral Susan Powell's stern face. Her gray hair was pulled back tightly, and her blue eyes were sharp with concern. Captain Murphy, what's the situation? 3 Vixuri vessels crossed our border near Proxima Centauri, Admiral. They're scanning the 4th planet extensively. Powell frowned. Proxima Centauri IV houses our main research outpost in that system. Keep monitoring them, but avoid confrontation. Diplomacy is still our first option. Yes, Admiral, Murphy replied, though he disagreed. The Vixuri were clearly testing human resolve. On Earth, Dr. Lisa Winters rushed through the halls of the Alliance headquarters in Geneva. Her report on the ancient warning had been filed months ago, but only now was she being called to speak with human leadership. She entered a conference room where Jack Rivera, Earth's chief diplomat, sat with several military officers. Dr. Winters, thank you for coming, Rivera said, gesturing to a chair. We've read your report about the predecessor warning. What's your assessment of the current Vixuri activity? Lisa took a deep breath. They're making a serious mistake. They dismissed the warning as superstition. I've tried contacting my Vixuri colleagues, but they've stopped responding. We've opened diplomatic channels, Rivera said. The Vixuri claim they're merely exploring unclaimed space. Unclaimed. One of the military officers scoffed. We've had outposts in Proxima Centauri for over a century. Back in space, the situation deteriorated rapidly. The Vixuri ships near Proxima Centauri IV had detected the human research outpost. Commander Neeks, leading this expedition personally, saw an opportunity to test human response. Target their communication array only, he ordered. A display of force to show our seriousness. The Vixuri weapons officer fired. The green energy beam struck the research station, but something went wrong. The beam hit a power core, causing a catastrophic chain reaction. The entire outpost exploded in a brilliant flash. On the Vigilant Captain Murphy watched in horror. Get me exact casualty numbers, he ordered, his voice tight with rage. Minutes later, the report came in. Sir, the outpost had 42 scientists and staff. No survivors. Murphy's hands gripped the command chair tightly. Send this message to Earth Command, highest priority. Vixuri forces have destroyed Proxima Centauri research outpost. All personnel lost. Awaiting orders. In Geneva, the emergency message interrupted Lisa's meeting. Everyone fell silent as they read the news. Finally, Admiral Powell stood. It begins, she said quietly. Mr. Rivera, informed the President. Dr. Winters, we'll need everything you know about Vixuri capabilities. What about the ancient warning? Lisa asked. Powell's expression hardened. The Vixeri are about to learn why it existed. The blue sun of Nexus 7 cast long shadows across the ancient ruins as Commander Neeks of the Vixeri expansion fleet stepped carefully over fallen stones. His scaled skin shimmered in the light as he approached his science team. They had been working for days to uncover the secrets of this place. The ruins were older than any civilization in the known galaxy. What progress, Chief Scientist? Neeks clicked his mandibles impatiently. Chief Scientist Rax bowed slightly. Commander, we've uncovered a chamber beneath the central structure. The walls are covered in script, but we cannot decipher it. It appears to be warnings or records from the predecessors. Neeks had heard of the predecessors. All spacefaring races knew the legends of the ancient beings who had ruled the galaxy millions of years ago before vanishing without explanation. Their ruins were rare and highly valued. The Galactic Alliance has sent an expert to assist us, Rax continued, a human xenorchaeologist. Neeks hissed in displeasure. Humans were newcomers to galactic politics, only joining the Alliance 3 centuries ago. They were emotional, unpredictable creatures from a planet called Earth. The Vixeri had limited dealings with them, preferring to expand in the opposite direction of human space. Very well. When will this human arrive? She's already here, Commander. Neeks turned to see a small figure approaching across the ruins. She wore the blue uniform of the Galactic Alliance Science Division and carried a heavy pack of equipment. Her skin was pale, her hair red and tied back from her face. Commander Neeks, I presume. The human extended her hand in their custom of greeting. Dr. Lisa Winters, Alliance Xenorchaeology Department. Neeks touched her hand briefly with his claw, as protocol demanded. Doctor, I'm told you can help with translation. I've studied predecessor script for 15 years, she replied. May I see what you found? Rax led them down a narrow stairway into the earth. Light panels illuminated a vast underground chamber. The walls were covered in strange symbols that seemed to shift and change as they looked at them. Liza's eyes widened. This is incredible. The most complete predecessor text I've ever seen. She approached the wall, scanner in hand. For hours, she worked in silence, occasionally muttering to herself. Neeks grew bored and was about to leave when she suddenly gasped. This is a warning archive, she said, her voice filled with excitement. The predecessors left information about various species they encountered, some kind of galactic guide. What does it say about the Vixeri? Neeks asked, suddenly interested. Lisa scanned the walls. Nothing I can find. Your species may have evolved after they disappeared. What species are mentioned? Many I don't recognize, some that match descriptions of existing races, and, she paused, her finger tracing a series of symbols. Humans. They mention humans. Neeks moved closer. What does it say? Liza's face had grown pale. It says, the humans of Sol 3 must never be provoked. Their vengeance knows no bounds. Neeks laughed, a clicking sound that echoed in the chamber. Impossible. Humans are barely a galactic presence. Your kind only achieved faster-than-light travel 1,000 years ago. That's what makes this so strange, Lisa said. These ruins are millions of years old. How could they know about humans? Perhaps they encountered primitive humans on early expeditions to your world, Rax suggested. Maybe. Lisa frowned. But this warning is specific and severe. It's stronger than warnings about any other species mentioned. Your people are known to be emotional, Neeks said dismissively. Perhaps the predecessors found this trait troubling. Commander, my people have a long history of warfare, Lisa said carefully. Before we unified, we fought terrible wars among ourselves. Perhaps the predecessors saw this potential. All species have conflicts, Neeks replied. The Vixeri conquered our entire star system before achieving space travel. Lisa looked back at the warning. I should report this to Alliance headquarters. I will mention it in my report as well, Neeks said, already turning away. though High Command will likely find it amusing that primitive humans were considered so dangerous. As they left the chamber, Lisa took one last look at the ancient warning. Something about the intensity of the message troubled her deeply. The predecessors had feared humans. But why?